coming up on Outdoor Oklahoma.
Yeah, so it can actually take your rut activity and, make it more intense and shorten it. So,
and hunters often use calls that mimic these sounds.
That is amazing. Good job, baby.
Much flavor that comes out of that first bite. You get that rosemary right off the top. Oh, you got him! You got him, Emily!
Oh!
Nice mess of blue cat we have right there.
Ready.
Now, folks, this is what we're after. This is what you get in Outdoor Oklahoma.
Outdoor Oklahoma is brought to you by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, sharing the beauty, the adventure, and the spirit of Oklahoma's wild places.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pake Wise. I'm the Hunter Education Coordinator for the Department of Wildlife. We're going to talk about the upcoming deer season here with our big game biologist, Dallas Barber.
yeah, hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate you, inviting me to come on and talk a little bit about deer hunting today.
Well, I appreciate it.
You bet.
Well, before we get into the upcoming season, let's get into last year's numbers.
Yeah. So, we had a phenomenal year last year. A little over 128,000 deer harvested, which is, kind of right where we've been, kind of a sweet spot here over the last couple of years. The most impressive kind of feat or number that we have is 48% of our overall harvest was made up of antlerless deer,
There we go.
which is kind of right in the sweet spot for where we want to be. More to, kind of promote a healthier buck to doe ratio across most of the state and ensure for a healthy deer herd.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think that's something that we've been pushing for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a kind of mantra of ours here for the last almost decade now, I'd say, is, hunters in the know take a doe. And that's something, we make recommendations. Our hunters are really the boots on the ground kind of managers for our deer herds. Mm-hmm. So we make recommendations to them, be it through messaging, be it through different, rules, regulations, season dates, limits, things like that to promote antlerless harvest. And our hunters have really kind of taken that by the reins and done a great job at it.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the positives of managing doe harvest like that?
Yeah, so there's a ton of benefits. Obviously, just managing for overall numbers across pieces of property, keeping healthy buck to doe ratios. But one of the big ones that people don't really take a grasp of is making it as much available nutrition on your piece of property as you can, because you have less mouths to feed. So in a roundabout way, the less mouths that you have to feed, compared to areas that are overpopulated, mm-hmm. You're going to end up with better antler development, because bucks now have more availability to some of that high quality nutrition, which then translates into antler growth.
Awesome. Does it have any effect on rut activity?
Yeah, so it can actually take your rut activity and, make it more intense and shorten it. So whenever you have a good buck to doe ratio, and we can cover a little bit of that, a lot of the magazines or things that you've read in the past have said, like, a 1-to-1 ratio is ideal. Mm-hmm. That is ideal, but it's not practical, and it's not possible in a free-range deer herd. So that 4-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio is really something that's achievable across most of the landscape, but that's kind of where you want to be with that. What happens is, as you have less does on the property, all of those does will kind of come into estrus all at the same time, which makes that rut a lot more condensed, a lot more tight, which provides an awesome hunting experience, because mm-hmm. it's all happening all at once. But B, it really goes towards better health for your bucks, because they're not having to run and chase does from November till February. So that, leads them into antler development later that spring and summer in a lot better shape overall. So, the first thing they're having to do is recoup all that energy spent just to get their body back in good shape. So instead of having to do that, they can put a lot more of that good green up that happens in the
mm-hmm.
spring, and take a lot of that nutrition and put it towards antler growth instead of putting it towards, repairing their body from a long, extended rut period.
Cool. So yeah, from what I'm kind of hearing is it's not just a population management technique.
Mm-hmm.
It's better for your rut activity. It's a lot better for your antler growth. You wind up having better deer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all connected at the end of the day. So that's something that we've really, kind of not necessarily harped on, but definitely promoted with mm-hmm. our hunters. And boy, they have really taken hold with it. And you can see the results of that, not only in overall antlerless harvest, but just some of the awesome bucks that are being harvested across the state.
Fantastic. Let's talk about, we can touch on it, the CWD zone.
Yeah. So we did have one additional positive come up over the summer. It was a sick deer that, we follow the same protocol for all of our sick deer reports that we get. That deer was exhibiting some symptoms of CWD. The difficult part about CWD is that those same symptoms that they're exhibiting with chronic wasting disease. So, extreme emaciation, loss of fear of humans, not really acting like a deer would be the best way to describe it. Those are also symptoms of a lot of things that are a lot more common. Something as simple as a broken tooth can cause, some of those same symptoms. But that deer was exhibiting, those symptoms, went through our protocol of, basically sampling that deer. It did come back positive. This is about 2.5 miles north of the Texas border, straight south of Guyman. So essentially, we just expanded some of those select surveillance areas, which just limit some movement of high-risk parts out of that zone. That's to try to minimize the human spread of chronic wasting disease. We understand that animals are going to walk. They don't understand where those zones are, right? But what we're trying to prevent is somebody harvesting a deer in that area, driving it all the way back to eastern Oklahoma or wherever they may be from, processing that deer and throwing those parts out, on the back 40. So that's the purpose of those. With those SSAs, we also have 3 new drop-off freezers that we've put out there. That's going to allow people to have their deer tested if they choose to do so. It's 100% voluntary. We've got one at the Guyman Police Department, we've got one at the Goodwell Fire Department, and we've got one at the Texoma Fire Department. So super simple process there. All the instructions are on the freezer. Usually test results, depending on when that deer's dropped off, anywhere from just a week or so to up to 5 weeks. Unfortunately, that's kind of the bottleneck there. There's only a handful of accredited labs that are available to test those samples. So as season progresses, those labs kind of get backed up, but quick enough to where, I recommend that people don't fully process their deer if they're going to have it tested. Just quarter it up and then back straps and tenderloins, scrap meat, store that where and if you can, and then wait for those test results to come back. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that's last season. Let's talk about this upcoming season. How are we looking? Things are shaping up well. I mean, we've been blessed with rain, which is sometimes in some spots maybe a little too much rain, but habitat's looking great. We've had a really green summer and a mild summer, which is good. Habitat across most of the state is in really great shape. So those fawns have had plenty of cover. Mom's had plenty of food to where a lot of our deer are going to be going into winter in really good shape. Along with that, antler development is going to also be, better than normal. I'm starting to see a lot of that with people showing me pictures saying, hey man, check this out. Look at this deer. So things are looking good. Obviously, weather-wise, we don't really know what we're facing yet. We're still kind of a little too far out. Looks like it might be a little warm and windy for opener, for that archery opener, but that's kind of run-of-the-mill for us here in Oklahoma. A lot of people are going to be shorts and T-shirt, tree stand weather for some. So we'll see how it goes. But, I think that we're shaping up for another good season. Cool. What does a successful late season look like for you? A successful late season? Or just successful season? Oh, I think that as long as we are still continuing to be mindful of antlerless harvest, if we can still nail that kind of 40 to 45, if not a little bit more % total harvest for our antlerless deer, we'll be in good shape. Overall numbers wise, as long as we're kind of staying within that trend line that we've been on, I think we'll be in a good spot. So I think, hunters have just got to take that mindset of I'm the manager of this piece of property that I'm hunting, whether it be public, private, club, whatever it is that you're on, you're the boots on the ground. Every arrow that you shoot, every bullet that you shoot, that's a management decision. So focusing on antlerless harvest and then focusing on just letting some of those young bucks grow up to maturity, I think will lead to a great season. Well, awesome. Is there anything else you want to mention? Or you think you got it all? I think we nailed it, man. I just want to say thanks to all of our hunters for really grabbing it by the reins and taking into consideration all the recommendations that we make, and just wish that everybody take somebody new and have a great deer season. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Dallas. Appreciate you coming out and talking to us today. Like I said at the beginning, I'm Paik Wise. I'm the Hunter Education Coordinator. If you want to find out some more information, I have a Learn to Hunt podcast series here on YouTube that I'd love for you to check out. A lot of great information over there. So thanks for coming out.
The white-tailed deer is one of the most recognizable and revered wild animals in North America. Few animals capture the hearts, minds, and imaginations like the whitetail, or Virginia deer as it was first called. It is a beautiful, graceful, and cunning, and a source of lean, delicious venison for millions of people each year. The whitetail is one of 6 members of the deer family in North America. The others include mule deer, black-tailed deer, elk, moose, and caribou. For those of you that live in the eastern half of the United States, the whitetail is by far the most common deer species you'll encounter. The whitetail is the most numerous and widely distributed big game animal in the world, ranging from central Canada and parts of Alaska down through the United States, Mexico, Central America, and even northern South America. There are nearly 30 million whitetails in the United States alone, which is likely more than when Christopher Columbus set foot on this continent. They can live in mountains, prairies, forests, deserts, and even jungles. And of course, they can also live in our backyards. This is due to their ability to adapt to humans and their incredible number of foods that they can eat. Literally hundreds of species. Deer are primarily browsers, meaning they concentrate on weeds, shrubs, acorns, and berries, far more than grazers, which eat primarily grasses. The whitetail is named for its large, fluffy white tail that they wave or flag as they run from danger. This is in stark contrast to their brownish-gray winter coats, which blends nicely into the fall landscape. This coat is replaced during the spring with a more reddish-colored version that helps them stay cooler during the warm summer months. A typical herd of whitetails contains bucks, does, and fawns. Bucks are males of 1 year of age or older, does are females 1 year of age or older, and fawns are both males and females under 1 year of age. Fawns can be further classified as buck fawns and doe fawns. While the lifespan of a whitetail is typically less than 4 years in the wild, some have been known to survive into their late teens and even early 20s. The oldest known whitetail lived 24 years in captivity. A typical whitetail family group is made up of related females, mothers, daughters, granddaughters, and their offspring, both males and females under 1.5 years of age. In time, the young bucks will be kicked out of the family group and forced to move to a new area to live. This process is called dispersal, and is simply nature's way of ensuring that males and females from the same family don't interbreed. The area in which a deer lives is known as its home range. While it varies considerably, a buck's home range is typically around 750 to 1,000 acres, whereas a doe's is roughly half of this. Unlike some species of deer that form large herds containing both bucks and does, white-tailed bucks and does lead largely separate lives, except during the breeding season. During the late winter, bucks often form bachelor groups, which are simply groups of bucks of similar age or rank. These groups stay together throughout the spring and summer, but they break up before the breeding season or rut, which typically occurs in November throughout much of the whitetail's range. However, the timing of the rut can be highly variable in the southern United States. Male whitetails grow antlers, whereas females do not. During a buck fawn's first year of life, it grows only small nubs or buttons. That's why these youngsters are called nubbin or button bucks. During a buck's second and subsequent years of life, they grow larger antlers each year, at least through 6.5 or 7.5 years of age. The weight of a buck can vary considerably based on where it lives, what it eats, and its age, but they average around 170 to 200 pounds, though a few have weighed in at more than 375 pounds. Does weigh considerably less, with most weighing around 80 to 100 pounds at maturity. Whitetails are very good mothers. The first time a doe gives birth, approximately 195 to 200 days after breeding the previous fall, it will be to a single fawn. From that point forward, they typically give birth to twins every year. Triplets are rare, but they do occur, especially in areas with exceptional habitat quality. Whitetails have a unique fawn survival strategy during the first month of life. Instead of trying to keep up with its mother, fawns hide by lying motionless for days on end, only getting up to nurse or to be moved to a new hiding spot by its mother. This lasts for nearly a month before the fawn is large enough and strong enough to keep up with its mother. And as you can imagine, fawns are very vulnerable during this period, and many are taken by predators such as coyotes and bears. While whitetails don't have a complex language like humans do, they do communicate with each other more often than many realize. They use more than a dozen calls to communicate everything from danger to aggression to attraction. The most common vocalizations are grunts and snorts, and hunters often use calls that mimic these sounds while hunting. Whitetails also use behavior and body language to communicate. Aggressive behaviors like raising their heads high above another deer, lying their ears back, or walking away sideways stiff-legged are clear signs of aggression. If the warning is not heeded, more aggressive behaviors are likely to follow, including flailing or kickboxing among does. Bucks will often make all their hair stand up on end, making themselves look darker and more menacing, which may ultimately be followed by a fight involving the clashing of antlers and violent pushing and shoving until one of the bucks gives up. Well, that's a quick overview of the basic biology and behavior of the white-tailed deer. But there's so much more you can learn by visiting the NDA at deerassociation.com.
Many people new to deer hunting are surprised to learn that deer regularly communicate with each other, though in very different ways than humans. We communicate primarily through speech, whereas deer communicate mostly through senses, behaviors, and body language. While deer have the same 5 senses as humans, their senses of smell, vision, and hearing are the most important from a hunting perspective. Perhaps their greatest sense is that of smell, which is much more highly developed than ours. This allows them to detect predators, food, and other deer at great distances. This is also why deer hunters go to such great lengths to be as scent-free as possible while hunting, and also why they constantly check wind direction. Bottom line, beating a whitetail's nose is one of the most important aspects of being a successful deer hunter. A deer's sense of vision also is very different than ours. First, as a prey species, their eyes are positioned on the side of their head versus in the front as in humans. This gives them a much wider field of view, but limits their visual acuity or their ability to see fine detail. In this wide field of view and their unique ability to process visual images much faster than humans makes them masters at detecting movement from nearly any direction. So, paying close attention to when and how you move is another vital aspect of deer hunting. Second, deer have a reflective layer in the back of their eyes which causes them to shine at night. This shiny reflective layer allows them to use light twice, which allows them to see much better in low light conditions. Deer are not colorblind as once believed. They do see colors differently than humans. We have 3 cell types in our eyes that allow us to see in the short, medium, and long wavelength colors. These are the colors that we call blues, greens, and reds. Deer only have 2 of these cell types, the short and the medium. So they are missing the cell type in their eye that allows them to differentiate the long wavelength colors, which includes reds and oranges. So that's why deer hunters can wear blaze orange clothing and not spook the deer. They simply don't have the ability to differentiate orange from green. Surprisingly, a deer's sense of hearing is not that much different than ours. They can hear about the same range of sounds, but they can hear slightly better in the higher frequencies. The big difference is that deer have large, cupped ears that they can rotate. This is not unlike us cupping our hands around our ears in an effort to hear better or determine the direction of a sound. Deer are very good at this, as they are at recognizing sounds that aren't normal in their world. So, if you can fool a deer's nose, limit your movements, and eliminate unnatural sounds, you'll be well on your way to becoming a successful deer hunter. Deer also communicate through scents produced on certain glands in their body. Today, researchers have identified 7 glands on whitetails, including 3 on the head, 3 on the legs, and 1 halfway in between on male deer only. The 3 on the head include the nasal gland, just below the nose, the preorbital gland, just below the eyes, and the forehead gland. And while we don't know much about the role of the nasal and preorbital gland, we know that the forehead gland is definitely important, especially in older bucks. This glandular region on the deer's forehead produces a unique scent that bucks rub on trees and other deer sniff when they come in close contact with each other. We believe the scent contains information on the gender, breeding condition, and even dominance status. The 3 glands on the legs include the interdigital, the tarsal, and the metatarsal. Of these, the interdigital and the tarsal are thought to be the most important. The interdigital is located between the digits or the toes on all 4 feet, and it produces a scent that smells like rancid butter. Each time a deer walks, it deposits some of that scent, and this is how other deer and predators such as coyotes can tell which way a deer is walking. The tarsal gland is considered the most important gland of all because it contains the most comprehensive information about the animal. In essence, it's a deer's driver's license or social security card. Why? Well, because deer urinate on this gland, which acts like a sponge to hold the urine. And over time, this urine begins to break down from bacterial decomposition, creating a uniquely personal odor profile. All deer urinate on this gland, including does and fawns, and this is why other deer sniff the tarsal gland when they first encounter each other. So, aren't you glad that we're a visual species? The last gland is only found on male deer, and you can probably guess where. Since researchers don't know its purpose, we can discuss that one another day. Well, there you go. That's a brief overview of the senses and glands of the whitetail. The more you learn about deer biology and behavior, the more enjoyment you'll derive from hunting and the more successful you'll be. For more information on deer senses and glands and everything whitetail, visit deerassociation.com.
Welcome to the ODWC Test Kitchen. My name's Smokey Solis, and today we're making chili Colorado. Chili Colorado is a Mexican dish. Colorado actually translates to colored red in Spanish. So what we have here in this pot is some venison roast, and with it is beef stock and Mexican oregano, garlic, bay leaves, sage, salt, pepper, and onion powder, and cumin. And that's been cooking for about an hour or so. I did get this started early because it is a long process. To start, remove the seeds and stems from the chili peppers and add them to the boiling beef stock. Let them simmer until the peppers are soft. Cut 2 pounds of venison roast into half-inch cubes. In a heavy pot, add a splash of vegetable oil and brown the venison on medium-high heat. Next, add all the spices to the meat and blend everything together. We're just gonna stir this around, make sure we incorporate everything together. Then add beef broth and let it simmer for an hour. Meanwhile, blend the peppers into a smooth puree and set aside until the pot of meat is done simmering. We have guajillo, ancho, and pasilla chilies. Once the meat, spices, and broth have simmered for an hour, pour the chili puree into the pot and let simmer for another 45 minutes. Shorter or longer depending on how thick you would like the sauce. All right, this is finished up cooking. It's cooked for an extra 45 minutes. As you can see, this has reduced down. There's not as much liquid in the pot, and the sauce thickened. And as you can tell, this is just so tender. Now, there's a few things that you can add with it if you'd like. You got some white onions, cilantro, radish, squeeze some lime on it. As a side, maybe you have some Mexican rice or some black beans or whatever you'd like to eat with your Mexican food. Honestly, I'm just a tortilla man, so I'm gonna give this a try. It's probably scorching hot. That is amazing. After hours and hours of cooking, all those flavors just concentrated and just became a flavor bomb, basically. That is great. If you want to give this a try for your next wild game recipe, I highly, highly recommend it. And who knows, it might become your next favorite.
Outdoor Oklahoma is produced by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation and is proud to serve and be funded entirely by sportsmen and women and outdoor enthusiasts who love and appreciate all things wild in the great state of Oklahoma. Connect with us online on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube. Want to know more about the Wildlife Department? Visit us at wildlifedepartment.com. Thanks for watching.